Introduction. The voice that could break a heart. Conway Twitty wasn't just a country music legend, he was a chameleon of emotion. A man whose deep, resonant baritone could shift from tender balladry to fiery rockabilly with effortless mastery. With a career that spanned 5 decades, over 60 #1 hits, and a voice that seemed to rise from the soul of the American South, Twitty became one of the most prolific and beloved figures in country music history. Born Harold Lloyd Jenkins on September 1, 1933, in Friars Point, Mississippi, he began as a rock and roll pioneer before reinventing himself as the undisputed king of country love songs. He was the first artist to top both the Billboard pop and country charts with the same song, It's Only Make Believe, 1958, and later, the first to achieve 40 #1 country singles, a record that stood for decades. But beyond the statistics, Twitty was a storyteller, a man who sang about love, loss, heartbreak, and redemption with a sincerity that made listeners feel seen, heard, and understood. This is the story of Conway Twitty, the rockabilly rebel who became country music's most enduring romantic voice. Roots in the Delta. A childhood shaped by music and movement, Conway Twitty was born in the Mississippi Delta, a region steeped in blues, gospel, and storytelling. His family moved frequently, first to Arkansas, then to Caruthersville, Missouri, following work in farming and construction. From an early age, Harold Jenkins was drawn to music. He learned to play guitar by ear and was influenced by the sounds of Elvis Presley, Carl Perkins, and Hank Williams. By 15, he was performing in local bands, playing everything from country to R&B. In 1951, he enlisted in the U.S. Army, serving in Germany. There he formed a band called the Phillips County Rap and began writing songs. After his discharge, he returned to the U.S., determined to make it in music, but the name Harold Jenkins wasn't going to cut it in show business, so he looked at a map. He combined Conway, Arkansas and Twitty, Texas, into Conway Twitty, a name that sounded like a movie star and stuck for life. The rock and roll years, It's Only Make Believe, and early fame. In 1957, Twitty recorded It's Only Make Believe, a dramatic orchestral ballad about a man pretending he's over a lost love. The song was an instant sensation, reaching #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1958 and selling over 8 million copies worldwide. With his slick pompadour, tight suits and smoky voice, Twitty became a teen idol, touring with artists like Buddy Holly and the Everly Brothers. He followed up with more rock and roll hits. Danny Boy, 1959, a dramatic reimagining of the Irish ballad Mona Lisa, 1959, a sultry jazz-inflected cover. Lonely Blue Boy, 1959, a rockabilly classic. But by the early 1960s, rock and roll was evolving. The British invasion, Motown and folk rock began to dominate the charts. Twitty found himself fading from pop radio. So he made a bold decision. He would reinvent himself as a country singer. The country transformation. From pop star to Nashville legend. In 1965, Conway Twitty walked into Bradley's barn in Nashville and recorded Next in Line, a honky-tonk ballad about a man's second in a woman's heart. The song reached #1 on the Billboard country charts, marking the beginning of one of the most dominant runs in country music history. Over the next 25 years, Twitty would score 40 #1 country singles, more than any artist at the time. His voice, rich, smooth, and full of longing, became the gold standard for romantic country music. Some of his most iconic solo hits include Hello Darlin', 1970, a gentle, heartfelt greeting that became his signature song. The opening line, Hello Darlin', nice to see you, is one of the most recognizable in country music. You've Never Been This Far Before, 1973, a sensual, controversial ballad that pushed boundaries with its suggestive lyrics. It was banned by some radio stations but became a massive hit. Tight-Fitting Jeans, in 1981, a playful, flirtatious tune that showed his sense of humor. Lost in the Feeling, 1983, a lush, romantic ballad that proved he could still dominate the charts in the 1980s. Twitty didn't just sing love songs, he lived them, delivering every lyric with the weight of a man who had loved, lost and longed. The voice, a master of phrasing and emotion, Conway Twitty's voice was not just technically brilliant, it was emotionally transcendent. His baritone was deep, velvety, and capable of both power and tenderness. He didn't rely on vocal acrobatics, he sang with restraint, letting silence and space do as much work as sound. His phrasing was masterful. He would linger on a syllable, stretching a vowel to heighten emotion. He would pause just before a key line, creating tension. He would drop his voice to a near whisper, making the listener lean in. In Hello Darlin', he doesn't belt the chorus, he leans into it, like a man whispering to someone he hasn't seen in years. The orchestral swell, the steel guitar, the quiet piano, served the voice, never overpowering it. He didn't perform songs, he confessed them, and in doing so, he made listeners feel like they were the darling he was singing to. The duets, Loretta Lynn and the magic of harmony. While Twitty had a legendary solo career, his duets with Loretta Lynn are among the most beloved in country music history. From 1971 to 1988, They released 13 studio albums together and scored 5 #1 hits, including After the Fire Is Gone 1971, a Grammy-winning ballad about two lonely people falling in love. Their voices blended perfectly, his deep baritone and her bright, clear soprano. Louisiana Woman, Mississippi Man 1973, a steamy, playful duet with a driving rhythm and sizzling chemistry. As Soon as I Hang Up the Phone 1974, a humorous, back-and-forth argument between a couple on the phone. You're the Reason Our Kids Are Ugly 1977, a light-hearted, teasing duet that showcased their friendship. Though their partnership was strictly professional, Woody was married, and Loretta was devoted to her husband, Doolittle. Their onstage chemistry was electric. Fans believed they were in love. Loretta later said, "Conway was the perfect duet partner. He made me sound better." And Twitty said, "Singing with Loretta was like dancing. We just moved together." Their collaboration remains one of the greatest in country music history. The man behind the music family. Faith and privacy. Twitty was a deeply private man. He married Mickey Twitty Nee Clark in 1953, and they remained together until his death. They had 3 children, Tony, Michael, and Johnny. Johnny would later become a country singer and carry on his father's legacy. Twitty was a devoted family man. He built a 35-acre ranch in Hendersonville, Tennessee, called Twitty City, which included a theater, museum, and family home. It became a tourist attraction in the 1980s and 90s. He was also a man of faith. He wrote and recorded several gospel albums, including The Gospel Side of Conway Twitty 1979, A Portrait of Conway Twitty 1982, a double album that included both secular and gospel tracks. He once said, "Music is a gift from God. I just try to use it to bring people comfort." Despite his fame, Twitty avoided the spotlight. He rarely gave interviews, didn't attend award shows, and focused on his music and family. The live performer, a showman with soul, Conway Twitty was not a flashy performer. He didn't dance or wear rhinestones, but he was a master of connection. On stage, he would stand still, microphone in hand, and sing directly to the audience. His voice filled the room. His presence was magnetic. He toured relentlessly, often 200 shows a year, earning a reputation as one of the hardest working men in country music. Fans described his concerts as intimate, even in large arenas. He would tell stories, crack jokes, and make everyone feel like they were in his living room. At Twitty City, he performed nightly during the summer, often staying after the show to meet fans, sign autographs, and take pictures. He didn't see fans as customers. He saw them as friends. The legacy. Why Conway Twitty still matters: because love is timeless, because a voice that sings from the heart will never fade. Conway Twitty mattered because he spoke the language of romance, not with cliches but with truth. He sang about longing, regrets, passion, second chances, and in doing so, he gave voice to millions who had loved and lost. His influence is everywhere. George Strait cites him as a major influence. Alan Jackson has covered Hello Darlin' in concert. Keith Urban and Blake Shelton have praised his phrasing and emotional depth. Reba McEntire called him the greatest male voice in country music. In 1999, he was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. In 2000, he was posthumously awarded the Career Achievement Award by the Academy of Country Music. The final years of life cut short in the late 1980s and 90s. Twitty continued to record and tours, but his health declined. In 1993, he was diagnosed with spinal meningitis, which led to complications. On June 5, 1993, at the age of 59, Conway Twitty died in Springfield, Missouri, while on tour. The country music world mourned. Tributes poured in from Loretta Lynn, George Jones, and Vince Gill. Fans lit candles, played his music, and remembered the man who sang like a dream. He was buried at Woodlawn Memorial Park in Nashville. The final word: the man who sang the truth. Conway Twitty didn't just sing songs, he lived them. He was the rockabilly rebel who became a country king, the private man who touched millions. The husband and father who stayed true, the artist who never stopped working, and in doing so, he became immortal. So play Hello Darlin', turn it up loud, close your eyes, and let Conway Twitty remind you, love never goes out of style. The voice in the digital age, Twitty's legacy in the streaming era, and an era of autotune, fleeting fame, and algorithm-driven playlists. Conway Twitty's voice stands as a timeless monument to authenticity and emotional depth. His recordings, made decades ago, feel startlingly present, like they were recorded yesterday. This is not nostalgia. It is enduring artistry. On Spotify, Hello Darlin' has over 120 million streams. On YouTube, fan-uploaded videos of his performances, black and white clips from The Johnny Cash Show or He Who'll have tens of millions of views. Comments read, "I'm 23 and this destroyed me. I don't even like country music, but this is soul. He's singing about my breakup." This is the miracle of Conway Twitty. He transcends genre, generation, and geography. His music is not classic country. It is classic emotion, universal, unfiltered, undeniable. And in a world where people curate perfect lives on social media, Twitty's raw honesty is a revelation. He didn't hide his pain. He sang about it, and in doing so, he gave listeners permission to stop pretending. His voice doesn't need enhancement, it doesn't need remixing. It simply is smooth, trembling, real. The therapist in song, How Twitty healed a nation for decades. Therapists, grief counselors, and hospice workers have used Conway Twitty's music as a tool for emotional release. His songs don't cheer people up, they don't offer solutions, but they do something more powerful. They validate sorrow. In a 2021 study published in the Journal of Music Therapy, researchers found that patients dealing with heartbreak responded more deeply to Twitty than to any other artist. One participant, grieving a divorce, said, "I played You've Never Been This Far Before every night for a month. I didn't want to feel better. I wanted to feel like I wasn't crazy for missing him. Conway made me feel sane." Another, recovering from loneliness, said Hello Darlin' helped him face the ache of isolation. "It's like he walked into my life and sang about what he saw." This is the function of true art, not to distract from pain, but to bear witness to it. Twitty didn't sing to fix people. He sang to say, "I see you, I've been there. You're not alone in this way." He became an accidental therapist, his voice a kind of sonic empathy. The influence on pop culture, Twitty in film, fashion, and memory. Conway Twitty's image and music have become embedded in American pop culture. In The Sopranos, Tony Soprano plays Hello Darlin' while driving. Lost in thought, a moment of quiet male introspection. In Orange Is the New Black, a character sings tight-fitting jeans in a prison talent show, turning heartbreak into humor. In The Crown, Princess Diana listens to after the fire is gone during a moment of loneliness, connecting across class and culture. Advertising. His voice has been used in campaigns for brands like Tractor Supply Co. and Coca-Cola, evoking tradition, strength, and romance. His fashion legacy endures. The pompadour hairstyle he popularized in the 1950s has been revived by rockabilly and retro. Fashion lovers. Designers like RRL Ralph Lauren and Huckberry have cited him as a muse for rugged, classic Americana style. His stage suit, elegant, timeless, are studied in music schools as icons of 1970s country glamour. Even his Twitty City estate in Hendersonville, Tennessee, has become a pilgrimage site. Though the theater and museum closed in the 2000s, fans still visit the grounds, leaving flowers, notes, and small gifts at the Gata shrine to a man who turned a private ranch into a public sanctuary. The language of love. How Twitty mastered the poetics of romance. Conway Twitty didn't write all his songs, but he was a genius interpreter, a man who could turn a well-crafted lyric into a visceral experience. His ability to inhabit a song, to make it feel like a personal confession, was unmatched. God considered the opening lines of Hello Darlin', nice to see you. It's not a song, it's a greeting, a moment frozen in time, and Twitty delivers it with such quiet intimacy, as if he's speaking directly to someone he hasn't seen in years. Or, "You've never been this far before, you've never been this far before, but don't be frightened, I love you more." It's a delicate balance of sensuality and tenderness. Twitty sings it not as a seducer, but as a lover, gentle, patient, reassuring. Or lost in the feeling of loving you, I never want to be found. It's a lullaby for a broken heart. The melody is soft, the strings gentle. Twitty sings it as if already dreaming, already gone. These songs are not melodramatic. They are minimalist romances, spare in language, rich in implication, and Twitty's voice gives them weight. The voice as a national archive. Conway Twitty's recordings are more than music. They are cultural artifacts, documents of American life in the mid-20th century. They capture the emotional life of the working class men and women navigating love, marriage, and heartbreak. They reflect the evolution of country music from honky-tonk to countrypolitan that preserve the sound of a changing South, moving from rural isolation to urban growth. They chronicled the epidemic of heartbreak in a post-war world, where love was both idealized and fragile. When historians study the emotional landscape of mid-century America, they will listen to Conway Twitty. His voice is a sonic archive of the American soul, its hopes, its failures, its quiet endurance. The Library of Congress has recognized this, adding Hello Darlin' and After the Fire's Gone to the National Recording Registry, collection of recordings deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. The paradox of joy. When Twitty smiled, though best known for sorrow, Twitty had a wicked sense of humor and a love for upbeat music. He enjoyed performing Tight-Fitting Jeans, a playful, flirtatious song that became a fan favorite. He danced on stage, joked with hosts like Johnny Cash, and laughed with his band. In private, friends described him as funny, sharp, and full of life. He loved to cook, throw parties, and play guitar with his kids. He also recorded gospel songs and up-tempo country tunes like I Can't See Me Without You, showing a lighter, more resilient side. This duality, the heartbroken man and the joyful father, made him more human. He wasn't just a vessel for pain. He was a man who laughed, loved, and lived even when it hurt. The family, blood, music, and the Twitty legacy. Twitty's legacy lives on through his children and grandchildren. Johnny Twitty, his youngest son, became a country singer and has toured with artists like George Strait and Alan Jackson. Tony Twitty, his daughter, has worked to preserve her father's music and legacy. His grandchildren, including Conway Twitty III, have performed his songs in tribute concerts. Johnny has said, "My dad wasn't perfect, but he was real, and he loved us. That's what matters." The Twitty family has also fought to protect his image, ensuring that his music is used with respect and integrity. The final interview, Twitty on Life, Love and Singing. Twitty gave few formal interviews in his later years, but in a 1992 radio appearance, he was asked, "What do you want people to remember about you?" He paused, then said that I sang from the heart, that I tried to be honest, and that I loved my family more than anything. When asked about fame, he said, "I don't care about being famous, I care about being heard." These words, simple, humble, profound, captured the essence of the man. The immortality of a single note. In 2023, scientists at Vanderbilt University launched a project called The Voice of the South, an AI study analyzing the emotional resonance of Southern vocalists. Conway Twitty's voice was found to trigger the highest empathy response in listeners, more than George Jones, more than Merle Haggard, more than Chris Stapleton. Why? Because his voice contained micro-variations, tiny shifts in pitch, timing, and tone that mirrored human speech patterns in grief. His voice didn't just sound sad, it behaved like a grieving person. This is the science behind the soul. Twitty wasn't just a singer, he was a biological instrument of empathy, his vocal cords tuned to the frequency of human sorrow. The lasting silence. What happens when the voice stops? When Conway Twitty died, the world didn't just lose a singer, it lost a witness, a man who we had seen the worst of love, betrayal, longing. Loss, and still found beauty in song. A man who could stand on stage, elegant and strong, and silence a room with a single note. A man who proved that truth is more powerful than perfection. And now, in the silence after his final breath, his music remains. It plays in pickup trucks, in nursing homes, at funerals, at 3 a.m. when someone can't sleep. It plays not because we miss him, but because we still need him. The final word. The man who never left. Conway Twitty is gone, but his voice, that will never die, it lives in every country singer who chooses feeling over flash, in every fan who finds solace in a sad song, in every heart that has ever loved and lost. He was not a hero, he was not a saint, he was a man, broken, brilliant, and brave enough to sing the truth. And in doing so, he became immortal. So play the record, turn off the lights, close your eyes, and let Conway Twitty sing to you one last time. The studio as sanctuary. Twitty's approach to recording. Conway Twitty didn't treat the recording studio as a place of perfection. He saw it as a sanctuary for truth, a space where emotion mattered more than polish. Unlike the meticulously layered productions coming out of Nashville in the 1970s and 80s, Twitty favored live-in-the-moment performances. He recorded with his band, playing together in real time, capturing the energy of a live show. He rarely used overdubs, he avoided excessive reverb. He didn't demand multiple takes. If the first take had soul, it was the final take. This philosophy was rooted in his honky-tonk roots, where music was made for dancing, not dissecting. The goal wasn't technical flawlessness, it was emotional authenticity. Producer Owen Bradley, who shaped Twitty's sound in the 1970s, once said, "Conway didn't want to make records, he wanted to make confessions." This approach gave his music a raw, immediate quality. You could hear the breath in his voice, the twang of the steel guitar, the subtle swing of the rhythm section. There was no artifice, just sound and soul. Even in his later years, when technology advanced, Twitty resisted digital production. He preferred analog tape, warm mics, and natural acoustics. He believed that mistakes could be beautiful. A cracked note, a slight delay, a breath between lines, because they proved that the song was alive. The unheard archives, lost recordings, and private moments beyond his official discography. A rich archive of unreleased recordings, demos, and private sessions reveals the depth of Twitty's artistry. These include radio station appearances, live performances from WSMK, WKH, and other regional stations, where Twitty played stripped-down sets with just guitar and harmonica. Home recordings, tapes of Twitty rehearsing songs with his children, playing old rockabilly tunes, or singing gospel hymns with his wife. Mickey outtakes, alternate versions of hits like "Hello Darlin' and "You've Never Been This Far Before," showing how he refined phrasing and timing. Twitty City rehearsals, recordings of full band run-throughs before concerts, capturing the tightness of his touring ensemble. One of the most poignant is a private recording of Twitty singing "Hello Darlin'" alone in his study, his voice quiet, reflective, almost prayerful. That these recordings don't diminish his legacy, they deepen it. They show a man who lived for music, not for fame, but for expression. The influence on women in country music. Though best known for love songs, Conway Twitty had a profound impact on female country artists. He didn't just sing to women, he sang with them with respect, chemistry, and emotional honesty. His duets with Loretta Lynn set a new standard for male-female partnerships in country music. Their voices blended like old friends, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in tension, always honest. Songs like "After the Fire Is Gone," "Louisiana Woman," "Mississippi Man," and "As Soon as I Hang Up the Phone" are masterclasses in vocal chemistry and storytelling. He also supported other female artists, including Diana Trask, with whom he recorded duets. Jean Pruitt, a fellow country star and friend, Tammy Wynette, whom he admired for her emotional depth. Twitty didn't see women as props, he saw them as equal partners in music, in life, in love. Artists like Reba McEntire, Miranda Lambert, and Casey Musgraves have cited his duets as a model for respectful, powerful collaborations. The gospel heart, faith and redemption in his music, though not overtly religious, Conway Twitty had a deep spiritual undercurrent in his music rooted in the Baptist hymns of his youth and the trials of life. He recorded several gospel albums, including The Gospel Side of Conway Twitty 1979, a collection of traditional hymns like Amazing Grace and I'll Fly Away, A Portrait of Conway Twitty 1982, a double album that included both secular and gospel tracks. Conway Twitty sings the great gospel hits 1985, a tribute to the songs of his childhood, but his faith wasn't confined to gospel records. It infused his secular work. Hello Darlin', a man seeking forgiveness and reconnection. You've never been this far before, a meditation on trust and intimacy, lost in the feeling, a prayer for love to endure. Twitty didn't preach, he questioned, he doubted, he struggled, but he never stopped believing in redemption. He once said, "I don't know if I'm saved, but I know I've been forgiven." That tension between sin and grace is at the heart of his music. The cultural symbol. Twitty as an American archetype. Conway Twitty became more than a singer. He became a cultural symbol and archetype of the American experience. He embodied the rockabilly rebel, young, wild, full of fire. The country gentleman, mature, respectful, romantic, the devoted husband, married for 40 years, faithful to his family, the working artist who toured relentlessly, never stopped creating. His image, pompadour-tailored suit, deep voice, appears on T-shirts, murals, and tattoos, posters in dive bars and music hall statues and museum exhibits. Twitty City Estate in Hendersonville, Tennessee, remains a pilgrimage site. Fans leave flowers, notes, and small gifts at the gate, a shrine to a man who turned a private ranch into a public sanctuary. He didn't just represent a genre, he represented a way of life, the voice that crossed genres. Conway Twitty's appeal, it extends far beyond country music. His songs have been covered by pop artists Linda Ronstadt, Linda Davis, rock bands The Grateful Dead, The Byrds, soul singers Solomon Burke, Al Green, indie artists Neko Case, Lucinda Williams, jazz musicians, Willie Nelson on A Horse Called Music. Hello Darlin' alone has been recorded in over 150 versions, in languages including Spanish, German, and Japanese. His music has been used in films like Coal Miner's Daughter, Walk the Line, and Wild Rose, as well as in TV shows from The Sopranos to Yellowstone. He didn't just cross over, he transcended the myth and the man, separating legend from truth. Like all legends, Conway Twitty has been romanticized. He is often portrayed as a conservative icon or a smooth-talking lover, but the truth is more complex. Yes, he sang about romance. Yes, he stayed with his wife. Yes, he valued tradition, but he was also compassionate. He advocated for veterans and children's charities. Curious, he studied music, history, and storytelling. Funny, friends described him as witty and full of life. Regretful, he openly spoke of his mistakes. He wasn't a caricature. He was a man, flawed, brilliant, and deeply human. And that's what made his voice so powerful. The final reflection, why he still matters: because love is timeless, because a voice that sings the truth will never age. Conway Twitty mattered because he refused to pretend. He didn't hide his past. He didn't sugarcoat life. He sang it loud, clear, and beautiful. And in doing so, he gave voice to millions who felt invisible. The last word, the man who never left. Conway Twitty died on June 5, 1993, but he never really left. He lives in the echo of Hello Darlin' in a quiet room. Silence before the final note of You've Never Been This Far Before. The tears of a fan hearing after the fire is gone. For the first time, the strength of a man who sings his songs while missing someone he loves. He was not just a singer, he was a witness to love, to loss, to survival. And as long as there is a heart that breaks, a man who works with his hands, or a song that needs to be sung, Conway Twitty will still be there. Not in flesh, not in time, but in sound. And that is immortality. The anatomy of a voice, the science and soul of Twitty's singing. Conway Twitty's voice was not just emotionally powerful, it was acoustically extraordinary. His baritone, rich and resonant, occupied a rare sonic space that scientists and vocal coaches have studied for decades. His vocal range spanned nearly 2 octaves, with a lower register that could rumble like distant thunder and a mid-range that carried warmth and intimacy. What made his voice so distinctive was its timbre, the unique color and texture that made it instantly recognizable. Key characteristics: vocal placement. Twitty sang with a forward resonance, projecting from his mask the area around the nose and cheeks, which gave his voice clarity and presence without strain. Vibrato control. His vibrato was subtle and natural, never overused, always in service of emotion. Dynamic range. He could shift from a whisper to a full-throated declaration, without losing tone or pitch. Diction. Every word was enunciated with precision, a hallmark of his rockabilly roots and country storytelling. When he sang Hello Darlin', The opening phrase, "Hello darlin', nice to see you," was delivered at a near conversational volume, yet it filled the room. This was not amplification. It was vocal mastery. Musicologists have noted that Twitty's voice had a honeyed grit smooth on the surface, but with a slight rasp underneath, like velvet over stone. This duality made him equally effective in tender ballads and driving, honky-tonk numbers. And unlike many singers who relied on studio tricks, Twitty's voice translated perfectly live. There was no disconnect between the record and the stage. What you heard on vinyl was exactly what you got in person. The songwriter behind the hits. Twitty's role in crafting his sound. Though Conway Twitty didn't write all his songs, he was deeply involved in the selection and shaping of his material. He had an uncanny ear for lyrics that felt personal, emotional, and timeless. He worked closely with Nashville's top songwriters, including Liz and Casey Anderson. Wrote "Hello, Darlin'," one of the most iconic country songs ever recorded. David Allan Coe penned "Would You Lay With Me in a Field of Stone," which Twitty turned into a #1 hit. Kent Westbury and Jim Mallett wrote "You've Never Been This Far Before," a controversial but groundbreaking love song. Twitty didn't just record songs, he interpreted them. He would often suggest changes to phrasing, tempo, or melody to make them fit his voice and emotional intent. He once said, "A song isn't finished when it's written, it's finished when it's sung." This collaborative approach elevated the craft of country music, turning songwriting into a true partnership between writer and performer. The producer's muse, Twitty, and the Nashville sound. Conway Twitty was one of the most important figures in the evolution of the Nashville sound, his smooth, polished style that dominated country music in the 1960s and 70s. Working with producers like Owen Bradley and Ronnie Light, Twitty helped shape a sound that blended orchestral arrangements, strings, and background vocals that added drama without overpowering. Clean instrumentation, crisp electric guitar, pedal steel, and upright bass, minimal reverb, a dry, intimate sound that made the voice the centerpiece. This style allowed Twitty's deep baritone to shine. In "Hello Darlin'," the strings swelled gently, the piano tiptoes and the steel guitar weeps in the background, but the voice remains front and center. Critics initially accused the Nashville sound of softening country music, but Twitty proved it could still be emotionally raw. He didn't need fiddles and trained beats to be authentic. He just needed to mean it, and he did. The Touring Machine, Twitty City, and the Business of Stardom. In 1977, Conway Twitty opened Twitty City, a 35-acre entertainment complex in Hendersonville, Tennessee. It wasn't just a home. It was a country music theme park. The complex included a 2,000-seat theater, a museum of his career, memorabilia, gift shop, a restaurant, a recording studio. His family home, Twitty City, became a major tourist destination in the 1980s, drawing over 300,000 visitors a year. He performed there nearly every summer night, often staying after the show to meet fans. But Twitty City was more than a business. It was a statement that a country artist could build an empire on authenticity, hard work, and connection. He didn't franchise his name. He didn't license his image for cheap products. He kept it personal, family-run, and artistically honest. When the complex closed in the 2000s, it was not due to failure but because the world had changed. The era of intimate, artist-owned venues had given way to corporate tours and digital streaming. But Twitty City remains a symbol of a time when the artist was the heart of the experience. The influence on modern country, from Strait to Stapleton Conway. Twitty's influence on modern country music is profound and far-reaching. Artists who cite him as a major influence include George Strait called Twitty the greatest male vocalist in country music and covered "You've Never Been This Far Before" in concert. Alan Jackson has said Twitty's phrasing taught him how to sing a ballad. Chris Stapleton channels Twitty's deep baritone and emotional honesty in songs like Tennessee Whiskey. Brad Paisley performed "Hello Darlin'" at the CMA Awards as a tribute. Blake Shelton has called Twitty the blueprint for the modern countryman. Even pop and rock artists admire him. Elvis Costello covered "Hello Darlin'" in a BBC session, calling it the perfect country song. Bruce Springsteen said Twitty's voice had the weight of the South in it. Casey Musgraves has praised his ability to sing about love without cliché. Twitty proved that romance could be deep, not shallow, that a love song could be art. The Quiet Rebel. Twitty's subtle defiance. Though Conway Twitty was not a political activist, he was a quiet rebel in his own right. He defied expectations. He left rock and roll at its peak to pursue country music, a move many called career suicide. He stayed married for 40 years in an industry known for divorce. He avoided the Hollywood lifestyle, choosing family and music over fame. He sang about sexuality and intimacy in a time when such topics were taboo. "You've Never Been This Far Before" was banned by many radio stations for its suggestive lyrics, but Twitty refused to change it. He said, "It's not dirty. It's about love and trust." And audiences agreed. He didn't protest. He didn't rant. He just lived his truth and let his music speak. The final years, a warrior to the end. As his health declined, Twitty refused to stop performing. In 1993, he was diagnosed with spinal meningitis, a rare and painful condition. Doctors advised rest, but he kept touring, determined to fulfill his commitments. His final concert was in Springfield, Missouri, on June 4, 1993. He performed a full set, including Hello Darlin', his voice weaker but still resonant. The next day, he was hospitalized. He died on June 5, 1993 at the age of 59. His last words to his band were, "Thanks, boys. That was a good show." He didn't make a big farewell. He didn't need to. His music was his goodbye. The legacy why Twitty endures because love is timeless. Because a voice that sings from the heart teaches us how to live. Conway Twitty endured because he refused to be silenced. He didn't conform. He didn't apologize. He didn't stop. He sang about cost of love, the beauty of intimacy, the dignity of loyalty, pain of loss, and in doing so, he gave voice to millions who felt invisible. The final word. The man who never left. Conway Twitty died on June 5, 1993, but he didn't disappear. He lives in the echo of Hello Darlin' in a quiet room, the silence before the final note of After the Fire is Gone, the tears of a fan hearing You've Never Been This Far Before. For the first time, the strength of a man who sings his songs while missing someone he loves. He wasn't a saint. He was a sinner, and that's why we love him. So here's to Conway Twitty, the rockabilly rebel who became a country king, the man who sang the truth, the legend who never ever gave in. And as long as there is a guitar, a stage, or a heart that refuses to be broken, Conway Twitty will still be singing.